This beautiful painting by Francis Spate, Cameron Art Museum acquired in 2004. Our former director, Ren Brown. It was actually Ren's last act with his long, most prosperous career with us, 19 years long. This was the decision for our acquisitions committee to acquire this work was one of the last very happy things that Ren experienced before he passed away in July 2004. And Ren had worked with Francis Spate's family on this acquisition. It's a painting from 1929-1930 of an area that Spate called Little Italy in Pennsylvania. He lived in Bucks County for many years, and there was so much immigration, Italian immigration, basically during the 1880s through the 1930s to this area. Much of the drive for that influx of promise in life was the coal, coke, steel, locomotive industries. And Spate so poignantly presents, to my mind, the old world and the new world, and it's divided by the Youghiogheny River in this work. Let's investigate it together. See the reference of the locomotive winding its way along this trail between these largely rural structures that may look very much even like simple structures in Italy, and see the Youghiogheny River, and then the plants with the smokestacks billowing in the distance, and then the smoke rolling into the mountain forms. Look at this old world light here in the foreground. And I love the distance that Spate chose down on this scene. This woman with her little basket walking down the steps. This woman looking down at her with her child at her knees, as kids are wont to do. We have little farm animals, chickens and goats here in this gated area. More children playing, a little animal house, whether it's the little goat house here. So it's very much domesticated, very modest, domesticated activities of the moments of life. And then we move into this industrialized world across the river. Spate was a brilliant artist that we are so proud of from North Carolina. He was born in Windsor, North Carolina, which is northeast North Carolina, very much rural surrounds. And he ultimately had an extremely successful career as a teacher and an artist associated with the Pennsylvania Academy of the Fine Arts. His painting, even though he lived so much of his life in Philadelphia, bustling, growing, important city in the US, he chose to take his paint box and his palette and his canvas out into the rural reaches of Bucks County. And so this is much of what Little Italy is very consistent with Spate's prodigious outpouring. He was an extremely prolific painter. It's amazing to think that he reached as many students and created as much work of his own as he did. He and his wife Sarah, whom he met at the Pennsylvania Academy, they ultimately moved back to northeast North Carolina, and he was on the faculty of East Carolina University, affecting the lives of so many artists that became the next generation, and then they affected the next generation. So his impact on North Carolina alone is considerable. We are so proud of this most beautiful painting of Little Italy. Please spend time going into all of these little vignettes and these little old world spaces, moving into the new world spaces. I think it's very interesting he did this painting around 1930, which really marked kind of the end of the considerable influx of immigrants from Italy into this region of Pennsylvania. For me, studying Spate's work, all my time growing up in North Carolina, this painting is not so much an indication of it, but he is such a student of cloud formations. Today, this very day in time, is a Francis Spate day. There are days that I look up and it's Francis Spate cloud formations that are all across the sky. And I think that's so important when an artist absolutely changes the way that we see things, and Spate alone categorically changes the way that so many of us see cloud formations. That alone is such a mark of the prevalence of their work in our lives, in our daily lives. This exhibition is comprised of work from our permanent collection. It's on view here in the Brown Wing through Sunday, July the 9th. Please, it's a not-to-miss show. It features work by Francis Spate, North Carolina artist Elliot Dangerfield, Ben Burns, beautiful pastel on mylar works from Richard Stenhouse. So please come and enjoy these more traditional landscape interpretations as a counterpoint to an exhibition that we're closing July 9th as well, which is much more contemporary iteration of the landscape beyond the horizon in our Hughes Wing.